Well, still in the glow of Sri Aurobindo's birthday, we take up his Lights on Yoga again. We're in the section Planes and Parts of the Being. These letters in the main, written, we guess, in the mid-1930s. We don't have dates on most of these. We begin with this letter. There is a vital plane, self-existent, above the material universe which we see. There is a mental plane, self-existent, above the vital and material. These three together, mental, vital, physical, are called the triple universe of the lower hemisphere. They have been established in the earth consciousness by evolution, but they exist in themselves before the evolution, above the earth consciousness and the material plane to which the earth belongs. We've read The Life Divine. In some cases, some of you have read The Life Divine many times, perhaps annually. So this is not news to Sri Aurobindo's cosmology, and we who have recently read the Taittiriya Upanishad together saw that the revelation of the world figure is attained and explicated in that Upanishad in the chapter in which Bhrigu is learning from his father Varuna what is the source of things. Where does this universe come from? He asks very incisive, excellent questions, and the father Varuna sends him to discover for himself, with his support, what is the truth of things. So it is through tapasya that insight is gained into what is the foundational truth of the world. Well, his first discovery is that it's matter. His father is not satisfied and says, go practice more, tapasya. And so then we discover through Bhrigu that the truth of matter is supervened by the truth of prana, the life power, the power of the universe. It's not simply breath. Prana is all power. And then he proceeds to a deeper discovery, again through practicing tapasya, that prana is supported by manas, that it is manas who is the creator of the worlds. But he doesn't end there. He goes farther still and discovers that vijnana, what we would translate as the supermind, the mahas, the great consciousness, the world of plenary knowledge, has given birth to mind, has given birth, therefore, to prana, has given birth, therefore, to matter. Even that isn't the end of it. The father, Varuna, sends him back again to concentrate, and again through this deep psychological experience, which is the root of tapasya, self-discovery, concentration, do hard work. It builds energy and heat. Realizes that it is bliss. It is bliss that is the real creator of all of these various planes. They are all real. They are all genuine, and they are discoverable one on top of the other. So Sri Aurobindo is basing his observations on what is a very old cosmology, This is something that's in one of the earliest Upanishads. And we also, as we've mentioned before, found that the Rig Veda describes a number of worlds beyond the reach of the physical. In fact, one of the great peace chants, which is in the Atharva Veda, starts like that. An enumeration of all the planes of being leading up to and into Brahman, and then that all should be together in a grand coalition, if you will, of peace. And the whole universe should sing each level to the other of peace. So the lower hemisphere that he's speaking about here is not mentioned per se in these teachings that we've enumerated, that we've touched upon, but they are discoverable again to our inquiry. We can see, though, that since he calls these, as he does the lower hemisphere, that this is not the greatest nature discoverable. This is, you may say, the exterior form of nature, or a representation of nature which suggests but does not reveal higher possibilities, greater possibilities. This is the field of Prakriti, mind, life, and matter. Para Prakriti, the supreme nature, something else altogether, but from which this world and these planes are derived. So, by existing implicitly and immersively in this field, these planes have subtracted nothing from their own domain. They may be here, in a sense, involved in matter, ready to come out, to be evolved, and they do and have, but they exist primarily there in their own regions. They are the law of that level, whichever level we refer to. Their energies, their powers, their possibilities are explored here through experience, through development, through evolution. It is a long process, but in a sense they get to participate in the field of earth, in matter itself, by being willing to invest their conceptive power, their power of movement, into earth itself. So, Sri Aurobindo in the next letter says, there is behind all the vital, I'll start again. There is behind all the vital nature in man, his true vital being, concealed and immobile, which is quite different from the surface vital nature. The surface vital is narrow, ignorant, limited, full of obscure desires, passions, cravings, revolts, pleasures and pains, transient joys and griefs, exaltations and depressions. The true vital being, on the contrary, is wide, vast, calm, strong, without limitations, firm and immovable, capable of all power, all knowledge, all ananda. It is, moreover, without ego, for it knows itself to be a projection and instrument of the divine. It is the divine warrior, pure and perfect. In it is an instrumental force for all divine realizations. It is the true vital being that has become awake and come in front within you. In the same way, there is too a true mental being, a true physical being. When these are manifest, then you are aware of a double existence in you. That behind is always calm and strong. That on the surface alone is troubled and obscure. But if the true being behind remains stable and you live in it, then the trouble and obscurity remain only on the surface. In this condition, the exterior parts can be dealt with more potently, and they are also made free and perfect. So, inside, we discover what we really are, and from there can act more powerfully and with a kind of freedom, and without that ego that so obfuscates everything that we do. So what's on the surface in our obvious field of experience is a limited set of possibilities, conditioned by the material encasement, the restriction of circumstances, the world context, everything. But Sri Aurobindo contrasts that limited picture with the egoless, heroic personhood behind, which is brilliant, powerful, regnant. And as he notes, these virtues don't exist only at the vital level. They are true in the mental field and in the subtle physical field, where we can meet our true physical person. If we have prepared the outward instrument, and if it's willing. Poised within, we endure the storms outside. Poised within, we know what we really are and can work to transmit and reshape the outer world to reflect the image of what we are there. I won't name names here, but some of you will surely be familiar with a gentleman who had a physical impairment. And he wanted to know from Sri Aurobindo if that was true, in a sense, all the way down. Did that thing persist in his inner being, in his subtle fields, etc.? Sri Aurobindo said no. It obtains only on the surface, only here. So then, okay, what do I do to contain, to perfect, to raise to the highest possible level this limited instrument, which is not really me? Even in terms of my instrumental nature, this is only the most exterior thing. This is the mere coat I'm wearing. I also have a dress shirt on and a tie and a pair of beautiful slacks, golden slippers. How far shall I go? But we are something else within. And part of the power of yoga is to transfer into physicality what we are there already, or what we can magically change through the power of our sadhana. That if we have a weak vital, an imperfect mind, through developing yogic capacity, we can commune with the divine mind, with the vast universal intelligence, with the power that pervades and drives forward the universe, and bring parts of that which are cognate with our nature into our nature and make a change. And indeed, we see people doing this all the time. In Hatha Yoga, any physical regime which attends with focus upon the body is calling into it not simply physical capacity, but is energizing it at the same time. Tai Chi is a flow of movements, but all the movements are mastered by the governing chi, the vital force. We practice the postures, the asanas, but it is really the inflow of the pranic force which is more important to achieve the larger objectives of Hatha Yoga. Perfection in the posture is not the first aim. It is an aim, and it teaches the body stillness and form and the capacity to endure. So these things are great lessons, but there are still greater psychological lessons inside. But I'm wandering. The next letter. The mind, in the ordinary use of the word, covers indiscriminately the whole consciousness. For man is a mental being and mentalizes everything. But in the language of this yoga, the words mind and mental are used to connote specially the part of the nature which has to do with cognition and intelligence, with ideas, with mental thought or thought perceptions, the reactions of thought to things, with the truly mental movements and formations, mental vision and will, etc., that are part of his intelligence. The vital has to be carefully distinguished from mind, even though it has a mind element transfused into it. The vital is the life nature, made up of desires, sensations, feelings, passions, energies of action, will of desire, reactions of the desire soul in man, and of all that play of possessive and other related instincts, anger, fear, greed, lust, etc., that belong to this field of the nature. Mind and vital are mixed up on the surface of the consciousness, but they are quite separate forces in themselves, and as soon as one gets behind the ordinary surface consciousness, one sees them as separate, discovers their distinction, and can, with the aid of this knowledge, analyze their surface mixtures. It is quite possible, and even usual during a time shorter or longer, sometimes very long, for the mind to accept the divine or the yogic ideal, while the vital is unconvinced and unsurrendered and goes obstinately on its way of desire, passion, and attraction to the ordinary life. Their division or their conflict is the cause of most of the more acute difficulties of the sadhana. So, it's worth remembering Sri Aurobindo's psychology is based on a deep perception of nature. Other psychologies do not separate the tangle of elements in the being like this. Mind to them might be a function of the body, the vitality, and its appetites might be the real boss, but if they are, they still can't be separated from the subservient mind, which really exists only to justify and connive to get the things that the vital wants, or be separated and segmented from the rest of the nature. So it's quite a mixture. It's the developing inner consciousness, a questing experience that dives into the profounds behind the obvious nature and shows them to be distinct. Distinct inside, but blended in an intermixture in the body-based vehicle. When we sit on the surface, they're part of an indistinguishable whole. It's when we retire inside that we can see, this is separate from that, this works in this way, that works in another way. And so we can do something with it. It's almost like the term chitta in Sanskrit psychology. The Sanskrit term in Indian psychology, which describes the general mind stuff of which we're aware. We don't see that an emotion is distinctly different from a thought, or a velleity is different from a powerful gust coming from the more dominant vital parts of our nature. We don't see all of that. We begin to see all of that when our mind begins to inquire, when we develop an inquiring mind. So this study and analysis of our nature is part of almost every yogic practice. It is swadhyaya, the study of the self. Only if you see the phenomenon and understand it can you alter and improve it. The task is first to discover and distinguish among the several principles that form the cosmos. They're all present in you. This is what we've been saying. We are evolving beings, and all of these elements have manifest or become visible, tangible, experienceable through the process of evolution, one after the other. First matter, then matter lives, then matter not only lives but learns how to think, etc. And so we hope that we can go beyond this formula, don't we? But how they are ordered and empowered, and how to proceed to unify them all in a concordant yoga that releases oneself from limitation, from being boxed in by the ego and one little set of desires that we become infatuated with and seems to claim our nature. Can we move from that into a wider bliss, a satisfaction not of our appetites, but a satisfaction in seeing the world as a vast field of beauty and promise? Can we do this? Can we discover the divine being itself? So that's what we do in the practice of yoga, and there are a number of preliminaries. Sri Aurobindo cuts them down to just a few, but in the old school, you began with yourself. I'm not going to injure anybody. I'm going to stop that because that externalizes me and I'm doing harm to the world. Instead of telling lies, I'm going to tell the truth, however painful that is. I'm not going to grasp for things. I'm going to stick with the path in front of me, the ideal that I've accepted as my own, that has been born in me. I'm going to be true to that ideal. And I'm going to live without claim on anyone. And this is what a person says I'm going to do. But then it's in relationship to the world, isn't it? What are you going to do inside yourself? You're going to build the power of purity, integrity in your being. You're going to be content with what you have, because pursuing gratification never gratifies. You probably noticed that any itch that you scratch, it just itches more. We're going to work hard. We're going to practice tapasya. We're going to use the energies in us well, and we're going to hone them and develop them and go from power to greater power in our own being. And then, of course, as we were saying, we're going to study ourselves. because this is a great university right here. The body, life, and mind complex is a great place to learn about how the whole universe works. If we're not identified overmuch with it, if we can see our imperfections, see also the things that we do well and make them even better, but see what we can do to ameliorate, to elevate, to ennoble parts of our being which may not be bright or happy or willing to change. To be able to have conversations with elements of our nature and bring them into fruitful change is the process of yoga. And then finally, of course, learning to see the divine everywhere. To seat yourself in a posture where really this whole universe intricately arranged, beautifully set in front of us, has innate divinity at its core. And to see that being seeing us, this is the delight that sustains. Sri Aurobindo doesn't mention it here because it isn't necessary, all these factors, because he's writing to specific questions with a specific reply. But these forces and these fields and these planes that are experienced within are vast, and they form a cosmic body with an energy and a vision which we can glimpse and become close to of the universal person with a capital P. We share the same nature. That is not different from this. Purnam Madaha, Purnam Midam. That is full, this is full. This is implicitly a statement of the same truth that is there. That's the implication. As the self is valued for the sake of the self, according to Yajnavalkya in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, so the worlds are valued also for the sake of the self. Capital S, the divine self. That self exists in each individual, especially when they become conscious of themselves, but always exist impliedly and potentially in everything in the universe. So, in the divine, all these planes, all these beings fit together. And that's one of the core teachings of the science of honey, Madhu Vidya, in the Brihadaranyaka. This one, capital O, dwells in all bodies. This is all pervasive. The larger context is never forgotten in the Brihadaranyaka or the other great teachings of India. They don't call us away to leave the world. They explain what is essential and then demonstrate that that essence is here. It is manifest here. What we reject is ignorance. What we want to escape is foolishness, is unwise behavior, and a limited view. So we see the parts and we work to unify them in the whole through the inner work of yoga. If I might read something here to you. This is from the Brihadaranyaka. It's the 5th book, 14th chapter, and maybe around the 5th or 6th verse. because the teacher is telling us that we're making an error. When we hear the sacred verse, do we really hear it? So he says, some teach this Savitri verse as an Anushtub meter, saying that speech is Anushtub. It's a meter in Sanskrit poetry. And that we impart that speech to him. One should not do like that. One should teach the Savitri, which is the Gayatri. This is the teacher speaking, not me. Verily, if one who knows thus receives very much as gifts, that is not at all equal to a single foot of the Gayatri. Sidebar, you missed the point. You went for the meter and you didn't hear the words behind. He continues, if one receives these three worlds full of riches, inner riches, he would accept the first foot of it, the Gayatri. If he receives as much as in this threefold knowledge of the Vedas, he would receive the second foot of it. If he receives as much as there is breathing here, he would receive the third foot of it. Dimension after dimension after dimension. But that fourth, the visible foot above the dark skies, who glows yonder, is not attainable by anyone whatsoever. How could anyone receive such a gift? In other words, there are all these steps of the divine, and you have to fulfill the first one, then the second one, then the third one to qualify. You can't know what that is beyond until you have grown. So that's the teacher's point there. And again, what we would typically take as the oldest of all the Upanishads. So, now, I don't know if this is an act of generosity or an act of stinginess, but I'm going to put a holding spot there, a bookmark. Can we call it a bookmark? We're going to pause and resume next week because there are a set of letters coming up that I would like to do as much as possible in one scope and not do a little bit tonight and then continue the next week, although that could be a step of wisdom, and I apologize for being so absent from wisdom that I've missed that. But I hope you will be with me on this. Some of you who were with us yesterday, either on Zoom or actually here in Pensacola, heard me speak about Kapali Shastriya, the great savant, man of letters, Vedist, Upanishadic teacher, Tantric, Siddha, etc. The word etc. ought to be removed. He was a remarkable being in every sphere in which he worked. But there is a letter coming up, which I'll point out to you, which was revealing to those of us who practice yoga. So, we'll turn now to Savitri. And we're going to continue with the passages that follow those we just concluded. And we're on page 322 in Book 3, the Book of the Divine Mother, the House of the Spirit and the New Creation. Pardon me. Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea exploring its own depths. A living oneness widened at its core and joined him to unnumbered multitudes. A bliss, a light, a power, a flame-white love caught all into a soul immense embrace. Existence found its truth on oneness' breast, and each became the self and space of all. The great world rhythms were heartbeats of one soul. To feel was a flame discovery of God. All mind was a single harp of many strings, all life a song of many meeting lives. For worlds were many, but the self was one. This knowledge now was made a cosmos seed. This seed was cased in the safety of the light. It needed not a sheath of ignorance. Then, from the trance of that tremendous clasp, and from the throbbings of that single heart, and from the naked spirit's victory, a new and marvelous creation rose. Incalculable outflowing infinitudes, laughing out an unmeasured happiness, lived their innumerable unity. Worlds where the being is unbound and wide, bodied unthinkably the egoless self. Rapture of beatific energies joined time to the timeless, poles of a single joy. White vasts were seen, where all is wrapped in all. There were no contraries, no sundered parts. All by spiritual links were joined to all, and bound indissolubly to the one. Each was unique, but took all lives as his own, and following out these tones of the infinite, recognized in himself the universe. I think we can rest there, and we can continue another time. So, I hope you're well. I hope you're radiant still in the light of Sri Aurobindo's birthday. That birth anniversary is a cosmic occasion. All our births might be, but that clearly makes a difference. That clearly calls us to a greater future. So, we can't rest for long. We have to be up and doing. Speed in your steps, joy in your heart. Sunlight in your eyes. Stay well. Much love from here. Namaste. Jai Ma.